Alright guys, welcome back. I'm standing on the edge of the sweet potato field. It is September the 9th and I believe they're about ready. We've checked random spots with the shovel, but I've got the flail mower hooked on my 7120 Magnum. I'm going to make a couple of test strips, go down and back. Got my shovel with me. I'm going to get out, dig up some strips, 10 and 15 foot strips, and take some samples. It's a lot easier to do it that way when the vines are cut. And if I think they're ready, then I'm going to cut them all today. And I'll come back this afternoon with my little coulter rig and do that behind the cutter, and I'll explain that later. Normally, these potatoes are usually between 100 and 105 days is when we cut the vines. Today is day number 96. 96 days from when we finished transplanting. But they seem to be early, and I think it's because of the temperatures. These last 10 days, probably at least, we've had below normal temperatures, especially at night. And so I think that has sped up the sizing process a little bit. You remember when we planted them, we had such trouble with the slips because they were so big running through my little transplanter. And I know I had some skips, and I know there's going to be some skips, even though we went back and hand planted some of them. But you sure can't tell it. That's just, the sweet potato vines are so vigorous, and there's not an inch of a bare spot out here. It just completely covers everything. It may be hard to tell because of the sun and the angle, but these vines are starting to discolor a little bit, which is also a sign that they're kind of maturing and about ready. So we're fixing to find out. This is my flail mower. It's got those blades that turn like this, and you'll see when we start cutting them how it cuts it different than it does on a regular stalk cutter like I had the other day cutting down the watermelons. This flail mower just kind of turns this way and kind of lays the vines kind of right back on top, and they will immediately start to dry down. All right, what I'm gonna do is, and I don't think I can do it while I'm filming, I'm gonna take my shovel, dig up some samples, and I'll lay them out on top of the ground. Then we'll look at them and see, and then if they look okay, we'll keep going and go to the other end. Most of the time, the end here where we started, if they're ready, the other end's going to be ready. The soil type is just slightly different, and for whatever reason, the other end tends to always be just a hair bigger than this end, so we'll see. Okay, we dug up a few hills off of each row. This is a 4-row cutter, so I dug up all 4 rows in kind of the same spot. Those look pretty good there. Those are a lot of number 1s. You get some funky looking ones that I've discarded here, but that's normal. It's kind of an odd shaped one there. You always want to have a few jumbos when you get ready to start digging. gonna cover these back up, and then we're gonna keep going. The thing about sweet potatoes is it's hard to know exactly the best time to start digging. And as long as I've been doing it, it's still kind of makes me nervous a little bit, because you don't want to wait too long and have too many jumbos. You don't want to start too early and have too many small ones. I'm wanting to get the best maximum number one I can get, because I'm selling almost all of them retail, straight to the consumer. So you gotta hit it just right. I feel like they're ready, but we're gonna keep going. I'm gonna stop in the middle of the field, dig up some more, stop at the end. This is the side of the field that we started on, so I'm gonna circle around to the side that we finished and do the same thing, and then I'll kind of make a decision. But I feel like that it's gonna be time to start. The thing about sweet potatoes is there is no uniformity. You know, they're all over the place. Size, shape, that's just how they are. And so you're never gonna get everything looking the same. Okay, a lot of this is just loose, but you still have some vines that are connected. You know, that flail mower does a pretty good job, but it doesn't get 100% of it. But all this will start to dry down, and then when we run our coulter rig and cut the sides off, all this will be dead, and it may leave a little bit of green right on top. But that's just the way we do it. It's not perfect. You'll see as we go. This is not a true potato deviner. It's just a flail mower. It's what I have. I never have really thought it was justifiable to get something a little better or different, but it works, and we make it work. You'll see as we go what I'm talking about. See how when we cut the sample here, I didn't start on the very edge, because you don't want that outside edge effect to skew the samples. So I skipped those 4 rows and went to the next 4 rows to take the samples all the way down. So when we turn around and go to the other side, I'll do the same thing. Okay, we made another pass on this south side. I've checked them in the middle and the far end. They look good. We'll check them here on the east side. If everything looks good, and we're going to cut them all. Yeah, these are plenty ready. There's a couple of jumbos, maybe one there, a couple of jumbos here. So I'm not even going to bother digging up these other 2. I think they're ready. I don't think I want to wait any longer. So let's get these things cut down. I'll come back after lunch, show you what I'm doing here after lunch. And then maybe tomorrow, when I'm not feeling quite as rushed and trying to get all this done, we'll come back and dig up a few more with the shovel and see them a little better maybe. So far, what I've seen, the potato set seems to be really good. There's hills that have 10 or more potatoes. Some of them do. Not all of them that I've dug up. But my only concern is maybe our stand is a little bit thin because of all the trouble we had when we were planting them. So we'll just have to wait and see how the yields turn out. And some of that may get overcompensated if they're spaced out maybe a little bit more than they should. Sometimes those hills will produce more. So We'll just have to see. All right, we switched tractors. Back out in the potato field. All right, this is what I got. This is my liquid fertilizer applicator that I use mostly on my beds of plastic mulch before we lay the plastic. But we use these 4 coulters, so you've got a row and a row. And what it's doing is it's cutting the vines that are down in the fur, really. What you don't want is you don't want these vines that are left to be long, which they are long. You don't want to leave them like that, even though there's not much left here. There is a little bit, because when we come back with the plastic mulch lifter that I use to pop the potatoes out of the ground, you know, it'll have a frame and the blades will ride underneath. Well, that frame will rake up some of these vines right here if you don't cut them. And if you were using a mechanical digger, you would do the same thing. You would cut them so these potatoes would ride right up the chain. On a true potato snapper or potato deviner, the coulters would be mounted on the rig. So like what I did this morning, you would have the coulters mounted on there. I make 2 passes. It's not that big a deal. So, you know, we do the cutting and come back and do the coulters. It works best if you do it all in the same day, because if these vines start to dry out, they don't cut as good. They cut better when they're green. Okay, can you see that little trench? Maybe hard to pick up where the coulter ran. See, none of this is attached to any of this anymore. Like it ran right here. Pick it up. That may not seem like a big deal, but it is. Especially when my flail mower doesn't get 100% of the vines right here. It makes a big difference. All this is separate from this. And you come back in a day or two, this will look a whole lot different. It'll be dried down. When I come back in the morning, I'll show you how easy the skin will scar up when you just rub your finger on it. And so that's why we don't immediately come in here tomorrow and start harvest. On the little fertilizer rig, I should have showed you while I was out there, we disconnected the knives that are underneath those coulters, put them up on the top, took the chain off, and so the only thing really running is the coulters. As of right now, the forecast looks pretty good for us to be able to finish. There's a big old snake right there. I think I ran over him on the last pass. No hurricane or tropical systems as of now in the Gulf. That's usually what brings us a bunch of rain this time of year. So hopefully once we start, we can go straight through and knock it out. I think the last 2 years in a row, we've been rained out with 1 day left. Had to wait for it to dry up, so hopefully that won't happen. But We'll get it done either way. All right, fast forward to the next morning. I was going to show you a few things that we do here around the shop to get ready before potato harvest. The first thing is, in my warehouse building next door here, I've got to take everything out, which is my boxes like you see behind me and all of the wood bins, because that's where we will put the potatoes back in there in that same spot with the wood bins full of potatoes. So like these boxes here, these are some boxes that I had left over in the summer, so I got to get them out of the way for now. I mean, we'll start using them when we get ready to start boxing them. I put 6 pallets in the shop already, but then I stacked these up here outside. This is a good example right here of why I only use one box no matter what we're boxing all year long. So these are the tomato boxes that we put, obviously tomatoes, squash, cucumbers, peppers, peaches, all that in all summer. So when I have some left over, instead of moving them out of the way and not having anywhere to put them and having them take up space, because I don't have my warehouse space anymore because I've got that full of potatoes, we use these boxes here for potatoes. So that way I can go right into using them for potatoes instead of having to use a different size box and then have these just sitting around all the way up until next summer. Got another load of these boxes coming in tomorrow for delivery. So anyway, that's the example of how it benefits me to use this same box here all year long. This is the back side of my warehouse building with that big exhaust fan in the wall there. I'll turn that on when we start putting the potatoes in. And these wood bins, we keep them stored inside all year. I've got a few of these, I think 10 of these little wood bins here. They're kind of an oddball size, but the rest of them are all the same. They're 1,000-pound bins, 20 bushels. So we'll fill them all level full of potatoes, and they'll be 1,000 pounds in each one. So it's easy to keep track of your yield when you know how many bins that you fill up. Now we also use cardboard watermelon bins, and I've got a big stack of those around here on the side. You'll have to have a pallet for that, put each one on a pallet. The ones that we put in the cardboard bins are the ones that we sell in bulk, like to these guys that have been buying watermelons from me. I'll just sit the whole thing on the truck and they take off and go. There's no difference in the potatoes that we put in the cardboard bins and the ones that you see behind me. All the wood bins are the ones that we'll keep for ourselves and box and grade. So I just put a certain amount of potatoes in the cardboard bins every year. I kind of just got to feel it out and kind of get a sense of how many I think we'll have, and then we'll put a certain amount in those cardboard bins. And they'll have the dirt on them, they'll be mixed grades, and the guys will just take them and go with them. Not all the guys that are reselling like to get them in the bins. It's a little more work because you got to clean them and kind of grade them yourself if that's what you want to do. But they're cheaper overall than buying them, already cleaned and boxed. Another thing that I haven't mentioned lately is the acres on the sweet potatoes is 7 acres. I plant exactly the same amount every year. Now I rotate my fields, but that 7 acres stays the same. That's about all the room I have to store potatoes, and that's a good amount for me to keep all the way up until the holidays and try to sell out by then. 7 acres doesn't sound like a lot, and in the grand scheme of things, it's not compared to some big sweet potato farm. But you're going to be surprised at how many potatoes come off of those 7 acres, especially when you're selling them all directly to the consumer. You know, the big potato farms, they'll be using a broker and putting them on semis and shipping them out. So it's plenty of potatoes. I really don't want any more. Like I said, it's kind of the perfect amount for me. All right, let's head to the field. I told you we'd go back this morning and look at the potatoes a little bit more. So let's head there now. Okay, let's get out and look here a little bit more on the potatoes. All right, I don't think I mentioned this yesterday. They're gonna bulge out of the ground, each hill. And so when you see them bulging, you pretty much know that they're gonna be ready. If you see a hill that's flat, that's not bulged, it could still be ready. Maybe it got planted deeper than it needed to be, or maybe that hill is not big enough. But most of them, I don't know if you can see the contour there, but they're bulging out of the ground. So let's look at some right here. It's amazing how many can be stacked in there. This is all off of one hill. Okay, when you get little ones like this, you know, they will never size up. Or if they did, all these would be gigantic. So you're always going to have little stuff like this. So you can't, you know, wait on every single potato to get ready. But you see how it scarred up right here? Let's see if we can take one of these little ones and do it. See how that's scarred up? The skin is not set and not tough. So if you were to start dumping them all in those bins, you know, that would heal over, but it's just best not to have it done. See there? So what we try to do is wait as long as we can. I think ideally it'd probably be better to wait about a week, let the skin toughen up, but I usually don't like to wait that long because if we've got good weather, I'm ready to go. So we cut the vines yesterday, probably start in 2 days. So we'll give it 3 days, but it takes us a while to do them. So as we go along, the skin is continuing to set. So if there's any scarring up, it's probably going to be that first day or so. We just have to be careful. Be careful when we're dumping them in the bins. Be careful when we're putting them in the crates. You know, the ground's got moisture, and so this sand sticks to them, kind of, sort of. Of course, when it dries, it'll wipe right off. But that will help protect them from the scarring. And of course, if you were doing a mechanical harvest, it would even be more abrasive on them and make it a little more susceptible to scarring up. But you can see how the potatoes are all different sizes. You know, this is a jumbo. These are number ones. That's kind of an oddball there, probably a number 2. That's probably will be left in the field You know, it's important when you're harvesting sweet potatoes to have people with eyes on the potatoes grading them. Whether you're picking them up by hand like we do, we grade them as good as we can. And of course, we'll grade them again when we box them. But also, if you were mechanically digging them, you know, you have to have people riding on the digger to visually grade and inspect. Because if you were to come in here and just harvest everything mechanically and take everything, unless you were taking it 100% to the processor, you're going to have a lot of stuff that's going to be oddball shaped and sizes, stuff you don't want. So that's a little bit how sweet potatoes are different than, say, regular potatoes. Okay, let's go over here to a different row and pick a different spot here. These are all just like perfect size. All off of one hill. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 number ones and 3 or 4, I guess 4 that are too small. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that right there. I'd be very happy if they all looked like that. No jumbos out of here. When I mentioned yesterday, it's good to have some jumbos when you start harvesting. That kind of lets you know they're ready. If you have some jumbos, you know that probably most of them are going to be the right size. If you have 0 jumbos when you're inspecting and taking samples, then you probably need to wait just a little bit longer. Well, hopefully I've kind of piqued your interest or answered a few questions. You know, with the potatoes, you still can't see them, even though what I dig up looks pretty good. You never really know until you get started because you can't see them other than what you're digging up by hand or with a shovel. So I guess we're gonna wrap up the video here. I'm probably gonna, on the next video, it'll be all about sweet potato harvesting. I'm probably not gonna start filming right on the first day. Let us kind of get the kinks worked out and all that kind of stuff. And then I'll give you a little bit of filming throughout the time it takes us to do it. It probably will take us 7 or 8 days. And then I probably won't post the video until we're completely through. And that way I can give you kind of like a yield report, how it did based on average and based on last year. So appreciate y'all watching. We'd love for you to be a subscriber. I'm trying to get to 5,000 subscribers. Still got a little ways to go, so if you have not done that, please do. If you have, thanks. And until then, we'll see y'all next time.